Hello, this is Amber Willenberg from the U of L Libraries, and in this video, we're going to talk about developing a search strategy and using that search strategy to find sources for your extended rhetorical criticism writing project. This research requires you to incorporate at least 6 credible sources, 4 of which should be scholarly, into your writing. What does it mean for a source to be credible? It means that the source is reliable, accurate, and you can trust the information it provides. Scholarly sources are a type of credible source often required in college-level research because they show what professional scholars are writing about your topic. We'll start by talking about these scholarly sources, also called peer-reviewed or academic sources. Let's take a look at this article, Campaign Rhetoric and the Incumbency Advantage. This is a scholarly source, but how do we know this? First of all, we can read through the abstract to see that the authors argue that campaigns are a mechanism through which the incumbency advantage works, and that they offer evidence for these dynamics with a large-scale content analysis of campaign websites. In other words, the purpose of this article is to present research. This is a key feature of scholarly articles. They add new knowledge to an ongoing scholarly conversation. In this case, a larger conversation about incumbency and political campaigns through website analysis. Next, we can see that the authors work at Northwestern University, High Point University, and Oberlin College. Academic articles are usually written by professional scholars associated with a college or university. You can see that this article was published in American Politics Research. If we Google this title, we can easily find out that this is a peer-reviewed journal, meaning articles published in the journal undergo a formal review process involving other scholars reading and responding to the work. Finally, if we scroll to the end of the article, we'll find an extensive bibliography with pages of citations. Academic articles are written as part of a larger scholarly conversation on a topic, and the bibliography shows how the authors have situated themselves within that conversation. By citing scholarly sources like this in your own research, you're participating in the scholarly conversation as well. Now that we have an understanding of what scholarly sources are, we can talk about finding them. The library is the best place to get started with your research, and it's especially useful for finding scholarly sources. These types of sources are expensive, and your tuition dollars help pay for the library to provide access to them. While you might be able to find some scholarly sources on Google, you'll often run into a paywall and not be able to read the whole article for free. Another issue with searching for peer-reviewed sources on Google is that you'll probably get millions of results for your search and have a hard time narrowing down the results to high-quality academic sources. In library databases, your searches will return fewer results, but the results have been curated by humans who decided that these sources are useful for college-level research. However, because library databases are more specialized, it's helpful to develop a strategy before we begin searching. Let's say our artifact for writing Project 2 was Hillary Clinton's campaign website. For Project 3, I might extend my rhetorical criticism to focus on campaign websites and rhetorical communication more generally. My research question could be, how do candidates use campaign websites to inform voters? If we were using Google to do our research, we could simply search for this question as is to get results. When searching in the library, though, we'll search using keywords, the most important words from our research question, since database searching is more specialized than Google searching. In this case, candidates and campaign websites are the most important keywords from our question. We don't just want to stop there, though. It can be helpful to think about ways of broadening and narrowing this question with our keywords. We could specify presidential candidates or local candidates, broaden out to just websites, and add keywords specific to this project like rhetoric or rhetorical moves. Brainstorm as many keywords as you can. Having more keywords gives you more options for your search so you don't get overwhelmed or stuck when you start searching. If you need assistance brainstorming keywords, a generative AI tool like ChatGPT can be a great thinking partner. Try a prompt like, "Give me a list of keywords for this research question," and type your research question. For my research question, ChatGPT helps me add the keywords political communication, voter outreach, and political messaging to my list of keywords. Once you've developed your search strategy, you can begin using that strategy to find sources through the library. Let's get started on the library homepage, library.louisville.edu. If you're off campus, you can still use the library's resources. You'll just be prompted to log in with your ULink ID and password when accessing our resources. The best place to get started finding scholarly sources is the library's subject guides. These subject guides divide up library databases by subject area, making it easier for you to find the most relevant resources for your research topic. For my research question about the rhetoric of campaign websites, I might choose to search in communication databases, English databases, or political science databases. A database is simply a searchable collection of thousands of sources, many of which are scholarly sources. A good starting point for any research is this Any Topic Guide, and I would recommend you all get started with your research here. We'll click on the first recommended database listed here, EBSCO Academic Search Complete. EBSCO Academic is a multidisciplinary database that covers a wide variety of subject areas. Most of you will be able to find sources for your research in this database, but feel free to search in other subject-specific databases as well. In EBSCO Academic, one of the first things you'll notice is that there are multiple search boxes at the top of the page. This is why we developed our search strategy with a list of keywords. We'll enter one keyword per box. Let's try some searches. First, we'll put rhetoric in the first box and campaign websites in the second. This search gave us 8 results. We can go ahead and look through these results, or we can try some of our other keywords. Let's go ahead and change rhetoric to political communication. We now have 21 results. Keep in mind that you'll probably try out several searches with different combinations of your keywords to get the most relevant results. If you click source type under the search box, you can see that our results include academic journal articles as well as magazines and newspaper articles. These magazine and newspaper articles are still credible sources of information, even though they aren't scholarly journal articles. Make sure at least 4 of the sources you include in your paper are labeled as peer-reviewed. At this point, you can begin looking through the articles to find sources that seem relevant to your research question. I'm going to go ahead and click on this article here, How Partisan Social Identity Shapes Evaluations of Candidate Brand Elements on Campaign Websites. I know this is a scholarly article because it's labeled as peer-reviewed. In library databases, news will be labeled as news and other source types will be labeled appropriately, so it's really easy to tell what you're looking at. The first thing you should do when you click on an article is scroll down and read the abstract. Always read the abstract because it gives you a quick overview of the whole article, helping you determine if it's useful for your research before you read the whole thing. Another helpful tool here is the Cite button, a little quotation mark at the top right. Click on this to get the citation for the article in the appropriate style. If you decide you want to save this article to read later, there are a couple of options you can choose from. First, you can see if there is a PDF or download button available under the article. If so, feel free to save that directly to your computer. Another option is to use the Share arrow button to email yourself the article. If there is no PDF or other access options, you can click More Information under the article title. In this case, our library doesn't have this article available, so you can simply click the Request Item through Interlibrary Loan button to request a copy of the article be sent to you. You'll fill out a form and we'll send you the PDF of the article, usually within a few days. Only 4 of your 6 sources have to be scholarly, and you can find some other credible sources like news and magazines in library databases. Google is another great place to find credible, non-scholarly sources, but you have to be careful to assess the credibility of information you find there. Remember, Google searches the entire internet for results that match your search, so you might have some bad information from unreliable sources slip through the cracks. A quick trick for assessing the credibility of sources you find on Google is to simply open up a new tab and see what you can find out about a source outside of that source. For example, I found this article related to my research question on the Chronicle of Higher Education. If I was unsure what type of source this is and if it's credible, I could open up a new tab, Google Chronicle of Higher Education, and check out their Wikipedia page. Wikipedia is a great place to find out about the reputation of a source. In this case, I can find out that this is a reputable major news service covering U.S. academia. You can also talk to your instructor or a librarian if you're ever unsure about the credibility of a particular source you find. This has been a brief overview of using the library to conduct research. If you ever have any questions while conducting research, librarians are here to help. On the library homepage, click Ask Us to chat with a librarian Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 and find more ways to get in contact with us. You can even schedule an in-person or virtual research appointment with a librarian for in-depth research help. Thanks!